Conference, we have had a strong debate today, full of passion and of principle and of Labour purpose. And what we have heard from Liverpool, Derby, Norfolk, South Shields, Kidderminster, Teesside, from all over the country, is that we now confront a government that is not lighting up hope. It is trying to switch off the lights, as if we had talent to waste. When you hear the voices that we've heard on the stage today, don't you think that it beggars belief that George Osborne has the audacity to claim that this is some kind of safe haven? I wish we were safe from him. You tell the parent I met in my constituency a couple of Saturdays ago, Patricia Hodgkiss, that we live in a safe haven. She is the proud parent of a daughter in who she has invested so much. A daughter who is now fighting for the chance to work in a constituency with the highest youth unemployment in the country. Her story is now the story of 1 million young people in our country, 6,500 of them here in this city of Liverpool. If this country is such a safe haven, why is it that we have unemployment rising here faster than in America, in Japan, or in Europe? If this country is such a safe haven, do you know how many jobs we created in the last year? 66 a day. At that pace, it is going to be another 17 years before we get unemployment down to where it was before the crash. And I tell you now, this country does not have 17 years to wait. We need new jobs, and we need them now. We need this country firing on all cylinders now. So all over Britain, wherever we hold power, in councils and in national governments, wherever we organise and campaign, we have to be the party that is thinking, acting, rolling up our sleeves to get this country back to work. In America today, unemployment is higher, but it is falling faster. The president, he isn't sitting on his hands. He's not closing his eyes, miraculously hoping for the clouds to clear. He isn't indifferent like the Tories. He's not ineffectual like the Liberals. He is taking action with a Jobs Act to get America moving. Well, when I look at our country today, with unemployment rising, when I go to my constituency, where 30 people are chasing every job, and where I see in this city unemployment up 1,000 higher than when Labour left office, I tell you, now is the time for action here. This government should start putting our ideas into action. That is why Ed Ball's budgets for jobs is right. We know the banks caused the crash. Well, those who did so much to destroy hope should now do more to rebuild hope. We should say to them, you need to help us put the pieces back together. That is why we say we need a sensible, reasonable, fair tax on bankers' bonuses and a cut in VAT, to get 100,000 young people back to work, to get 20,000 construction workers back to work, to bring new business onto the high street where other shopkeepers and our shop workers are trying to get back to work. That is the action that this government needs to start, and start now. But what we've heard today in this debate is that jobs are not enough. We have to worry about the pay packet too. And we know in this party that families up and down the country are now struggling to make ends meet. And we know right now families, especially women, are cutting back their hours because they can no longer afford the childcare. So we should say to this government, now is the time for you to call off your unthinking attack on this country's childcare. When you are struggling to make ends meet, when you're struggling to work every shift and every hour you can, you should not be worried sick about what is happening to your children. 30,000 women in the last year alone have had to give up work because they can no longer afford the childcare. And worse is yet to come. Let me warn you now. There is nothing universal about universal credit. It is a smokescreen for cutting childcare and locking parents into poverty, and that has got to change. Today we learn the promised system is in trouble. It's there to read on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Well, let me give you our message to the Chancellor. It's simple. Don't you dare gamble with our families' tax credits. One thing more must change. To employers, in the business community and in the public sector alike, we have to be the party that insists on a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. Because when we live in a country 35 years on from Labour's Single Pay Act, when my daughter risks wages 40% lower than my son for the simple reason that she is a woman, then I tell you, our country's employers have to act, and we in this party have to hold them to account. If we want to lift the working poor out of poverty, then we have to end the gap between a man and a woman's pay. That is unfinished business for this Labour movement. So this is the Labour way. A responsibility on government to get our country back to work. A responsibility on business to pay a fair day's pay. And a responsibility on all of us to care for those in need. The welfare state, at its best, is compassion in action. So to those in genuine need, who need extra help to live and live a full life, we have to say, we will be your voice, and we will oppose the disgraceful spectacle of a government sending letters to people recovering from cancer, telling them their benefits will be cut before they are well, before they're back on their feet, and before the law is even passed. Conference, this is a government that will not even wait for the legal cover to kick you when you are down. But there is a renewed responsibility, one more that we will not ignore. A renewed responsibility on everyone to take a job if they can. Let's face the tough truth. Let's be honest with ourselves about what we heard on the doorstep at the last election. Too many people that we spoke to on the doorstep thought that sometimes we stood up too much for shirkers and not workers. We've got to deal with that if we want to get re-elected, and we've got to deal with that because it's the right thing to do. We are the party that was born in factories and mines and in mills. Our founders, they didn't debate the nuances of old Labour and new Labour. It was hard Labour that they knew all about. They were the men and women who founded the Labour Party. Labour, the clue is in the name. This is and always will be the party of work, of working people who came together to make sure there were good jobs and good wages and, yes, a responsibility to work as well. This is the party that said that idleness was an evil. So that is why, if you cannot work, we will look after you. But if you can work, you must. We won't take lectures from these Tories. They've got a work programme. It's a third smaller than the programmes Labour had in place. This government itself admits that 3/4 of people could pass straight through and back onto the dole. It's all programme, and it's no work. It does nothing to take responsibility or strengthen responsibility to get a job. These ministers are standing easy while millions of people are standing idle. So our approach has got to be different. Our philosophy must be the philosophy that we set out in our last manifesto, that if you can work and won't, we have to say we are banning a life on welfare. So let me just conclude conference with one word about the future. 50 years ago, our party built the welfare state by getting people back to work. But the truth is our country today is very different to post-war Britain. The job for life is gone. Families don't have one working parent, but two. We've sold off all the council houses and we didn't build enough to fill the gap. We're a nation that is getting older, where people look forward to many more years in retirement. All of this means that the risks, the worries, the anxieties, they're different to the days when we first founded the welfare state so that working people could live a life that was free from fear. Now people live in fear once again. Long-term unemployment, it's doubled under these Tories. People now worry about whether they'll get another job, whether they'll reskill ever again. Childcare is cut back to the bone. Families worry about whether they'll be able to work the shifts that they need. New social housing is all but gone. So parents worry about whether they'll ever move on. The NHS, it's being torn to shreds, and 500,000 women have had their pension age advanced with no time to prepare. They worry about what retirement is going to bring. So we have to be the party that gets people back to work, but we have to be the party that refounds the welfare state for working people. The lives they fear today and the lives they want tomorrow. We have to be the party that puts back together the something for something bargain that was the genesis of the way we came together to create a country free from fear. That's why we've got to look again at childcare, at the benefits you get when you lose your job, at new social housing, at social care, at fairer ways to encourage the majority to save for their retirement and the pension that they deserve. As Ed Balls made clear today, we've got to be fiscal realists in this work. There are welfare cuts that we'll have to accept, and there's welfare waste that we're going to need to bring down. But the right policy for the future starts with the right politics for the future, and the right politics starts with what working people need. Conference, throughout our history, we have been called on to renew our country for new times. And you know as well as I do that today our country is not calling for incremental change. It's not calling for the politics of small manoeuvres. It's not calling for timidity of vision. They are looking for Labour at its best, bold, transformative, and on their side, and that is what we must give them. Thank you.